Marcus Sterling flicked an invisible piece of lint from his $1,000 suit, his gaze sweeping past his father-in-law's dusty 20-year-old Toyota sedan with a disgust he barely bothered to hide. The car, a pale beige relic, sat in the gleaming white driveway of their Buckhead mansion like a stain on a canvas. It was parked conspicuously next to Marcus's new Bentley, a machine so polished it reflected the harsh modern lines of the glass and steel house. Samuel, his father-in-law, emerged from the driver's side. He was a man in his 60s, black, with a quiet, unshakable calm that always unnerved Marcus. Samuel met the condescending look with a gentle smile, the smile of a man who owned the very ground Marcus walked on, a fact Marcus was blissfully, arrogantly unaware of. This was the crisp Sunday afternoon ritual in Atlanta. Samuel arrived for dinner, and Marcus played the role of the magnanimous benefactor. "Samuel," Marcus boomed, stepping out onto the oversized marble stoop. His voice was too loud, a performance of welcome. Surprised that old thing made it up the driveway. He gestured at the Toyota. "I keep telling you, I could get you a lease on a real car. A man of your age shouldn't be driving that wreck." "She runs just fine, Marcus," Samuel replied, his voice a soft baritone. He held a small potted orchid, which he handed to his daughter, Alara, who had just appeared at the door. Alara Sterling, elegant and intelligent, took the plant and kissed her father's cheek, ignoring her husband's performance. "It's beautiful, Daddy." She was playing a long game, a painful 8-year test of the man she had married. At the dinner table, the contrast was almost comical. The dining room was sterile, dominated by a massive glass table and abstract art that cost more than a house. Marcus, a self-made tech millionaire who acted like a billionaire, held court. He was bragging about a recent merger, his voice echoing slightly in the cavernous room. "So, I told the board if you want to play in the big leagues, you need a heavy hitter. And I am it," Marcus declared, raising his wine glass. Samuel, who had been quietly eating, looked out the floor-to-ceiling window. "Your garden is looking a little stressed, Marcus. The hydrangeas need more acidic soil." Marcus stopped mid-sip and let out a short laugh. "Stick to what you know, Samuel." "That's great." He turned to his other guests, winking. "The market is a bit too complex for your generation." The microaggression hung in the air, thick and unchallenged. He meant black, poor, old. Later that night, after Samuel had left, Marcus started in on Alara in their master bedroom. "It's embarrassing, Alara. My partners see him. They see that car. Those worn-out shoes. What must they think?" Alara sat at her vanity, slowly brushing her hair. "He's my father, Marcus. He's a charity case." Marcus snapped. "You're lucky I got you out of that world. You're a Sterling now. You should be grateful." Alara met his eyes in the mirror, her gaze steady. "I was a king before I was a Sterling. Don't forget that." Marcus grumbled but dropped it, turning to his phone. The tension lingered as Alara remembered her father's departure just an hour earlier. As Samuel was leaving, he had paused by Marcus, who was scrolling through his company's new app. "A simple observation," Samuel had said, pointing. "The user interface. It's not friendly to older eyes. The font is too small, the buttons too close." Marcus had clapped him on the shoulder, a gesture of dismissal rather than affection. "Thanks, Samuel, but I pay Stanford PhDs for that. You just worry about your tomatoes." Samuel had just nodded, kissed Alara goodbye, and driven away in his old Toyota. Now, watching her husband's arrogant profile illuminated by his phone screen, Alara's voice was quiet. "That man built an empire, Marcus." Marcus scoffed, not looking up from his screen. "Yeah, a garden empire, maybe." Marcus has just scoffed at the man who built an empire. He thinks he knows exactly who he's dealing with. But we know he's terribly mistaken. If you are still watching and appreciate the patience Alara is showing, let us know you're here by commenting the number 8 below. It truly lets us know you've made it this far. We are the Black King channel, and we believe in telling stories that reveal the hidden power and quiet dignity that others overlook. If you don't want to miss the moment Marcus learns the truth, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on that notification bell. Your support helps us continue to create these stories to inform and inspire you. Thank you for being here. Now, let's see just how deep this disrespect goes. The unmistakable scent of La Nuit Rose, a perfume Alara didn't own, clung to Marcus's shirt, but it was the casual cruelty in his eyes that truly signaled his betrayal. It had been weeks since the Sunday dinner, and Marcus was becoming more distant, more volatile. His arrogance, once just a grating character flaw, was now amplified by something new. Alara's patience, the foundation of her 8-year test, was beginning to crack. She found the proof, not in his phone, but on his laptop. She'd been using it to check the weather when a frantic email popped up from his lead developer. The subject line was urgent, UI launch failure. Alara couldn't help but read the first line, Marcus, the launch is failing with the 50-plus demographic. The complaints are identical. Font too small, unfriendly interface. It was exactly what her father had warned him about. Marcus had ignored Samuel's advice, and now his app was burning. But that wasn't the betrayal. The betrayal was the email directly below it from Chloe M. The subject was last night, and the preview text was enough. The cruelty, however, had been planted months ago. Alara found her mind drifting back to Thanksgiving. It was the moment she knew, intellectually, that her marriage was a sham. The flashback was vivid. The mansion was filled with Marcus's business associates and their wives, all white, all loud, all dripping in new money labels. Samuel had arrived, as he always did, quietly and with a gift. He wasn't empty-handed. He carried a perfect, homemade sweet potato pie. It wasn't just a dessert. It was the dessert. It was Alara's grandmother's recipe, a piece of their family, a staple of soul food that represented generations of heritage. Marcus, holding a glass of champagne, had spotted the pie as Samuel presented it to Alara. "Oh, Samuel," Marcus had boomed, feigning amusement. "How rustic." He turned to his friends. "Isn't that quaint?" He then took the pie from a stunned Samuel. "We have a $5,000 catered dessert bar from Jean Georges, my friend. A bit more high-end than this." With a dismissive smile, he handed the pie, the symbol of Alara's heritage, to a housekeeper. "Put this in the staff fridge. Maybe they'll appreciate it." Alara had watched, her face a mask, her heart a stone. Later that night, she'd retrieved the pie and eaten a slice alone in the dark kitchen, tears of rage silently tracking down her face. Now, back in the present, she connected the dots. The cultural humiliation then, and the affair now, were one and the same. They were symptoms of his profound, unending disrespect. She didn't confront him about the email. Instead, she waited. A week later, at a sterile company networking event, he provided the confrontation for her. He walked up, his arm draped around a young blonde woman in a dress too tight for the office. "Alara, darling," he said, his voice slick. "This is Chloe, my new protégée. She's the genius behind our new marketing push." Chloe looked Alara up and down, a smirk playing on her lips. She looked directly at Alara, but as if she was hired help, a piece of furniture. "So good to finally meet you," Chloe said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. That night, Marcus came home buzzing, not from alcohol, but from the thrill of his own audacity. He announced he was throwing himself a massive 40th birthday party. "It's going to be huge, Alara. The biggest party Atlanta has seen. By the pool, hundreds of people. The theme is success." He grinned, then his expression hardened. "And please, honey," he said, the fake kindness in his voice setting her teeth on edge. "Let's leave the soul food at home this time. It's a high-class affair. And maybe tell your father to sit this one out. It's not really his scene, you know." Alara stopped. She turned, her back to him, and looked at her reflection in the dark window. The test was over. She had her answer. "He is my father, Marcus," Alara says, her voice steel. "He will be there. And so will I." The day of the party arrived under a blazing Atlanta sun, the water in the massive pool shimmering, waiting to reflect the ugliness that was to come. The mansion grounds were unrecognizable, transformed into a festival of Marcus's ego. Music blasted from hidden speakers, and hundreds of guests, mostly white tech brothers and their wives, mingled, holding champagne glasses. Alara moved through the chaos with a practiced, icy calm. She had deliberately chosen her armor for the day, an elegant, expensive white linen suit. It was a statement of dignity, a stark contrast to the barely there bikinis Chloe and her newly hired marketing team were wearing. Alara was the lady of the manor, and she would play the part to its bitter end. Marcus was in his element, drunk on power, alcohol, and the fawning attention of his guests. He was holding court by a massive ice sculpture of his own initials. Chloe, acting every bit the lady of the manor, was attached to his hip, her laugh high and shrill as she whispered in his ear. Alara watched them from a distance. She was no longer just enduring, she was observing. She was a scientist watching the final, predictable stage of an experiment. Marcus eventually climbed onto the diving board, silencing the music for a toast. "To me," he shouted, raising his glass. "To building an empire from nothing. To knowing what you want and taking it." He didn't look at Alara once. His eyes found Chloe in the crowd, and he gave her a slow, deliberate wink. The crowd cheered, oblivious. Alara turned away, her stomach twisting. She moved through the patio, forcing a polite smile, playing the gracious hostess. As she passed a cluster of lounge chairs, she overheard a guest ask Chloe, "Who is that?" The woman gestured vaguely toward Alara. Alara paused, hidden by a large potted palm. Chloe's voice was like glass shards. "Oh," she laughed, "that's just his wife. Don't worry, she doesn't matter. She doesn't matter." The words echoed in Alara's head, cementing the cold resolve in her heart. She was turning to walk away when a quiet presence joined her by the terrace. "They're loud," Samuel said. Alara startled, then a small, genuine smile touched her lips. Her father had arrived late. He wasn't in his usual dusty work clothes. He wore a simple, perfectly tailored summer suit. He looked less like a gardener and more like a boss. He stood in the shadows of the veranda, an island of calm in Marcus's ocean of noise. "Daddy, I'm so glad you're here." He looked at his daughter, his eyes taking in the scene. Marcus's drunken toast, Chloe's possessive hand on his arm, the whispers. He saw the tension in Alara's shoulders. He spoke softly, his voice a comfort from her childhood. "Are you ready for this to be over, baby girl?" Alara nodded, the facade of the hostess dropping for just a moment. "It's been over for a long time, Daddy. I just needed him to show everyone exactly who he is." "Okay," Samuel said, squeezing her hand. "I'm right here." That quiet moment of family connection, of steadfast love, was all Alara needed. Across the lawn, by the pool, the pre-climax was beginning. Chloe, holding a martini, spotted Alara talking to her father. She pouted, turning to Marcus. "Ugh, look," she whispered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "She's such a wet blanket. The party is dead. You should lighten her up." Marcus, drunk and egged on by the woman he wanted to impress, to make his girlfriend laugh, looked at Alara. A cruel, sloppy grin spread across his face. This was his chance to be the fun guy, the dominant male. He pushed Chloe's hand away and strode toward Alara, who was still standing by the terrace. "Honey," he shouted, his voice silencing the music and the party chatter. All eyes turned to him. "You always look so stressed. You need to cool off." Marcus is walking toward Alara. The music has stopped, and Chloe has that cruel smile on her face. You know what's about to happen. If you are still watching this video and find this story's details as intense as we do, please comment with the number 8 below to let me know you've made it this far. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment. We are the Black King channel, and we know the real king is watching from the shadows. I encourage you to subscribe and turn on that bell, because you do not want to miss the moment he makes his move. Your support helps us continue to create great content, just like this, to provide information and inspiration for you. Now, let's hold our breath and continue. With a cruel, performative grin for Chloe, Marcus shoved Alara with both hands, sending her stumbling backward into the deep end of the pool. The world dissolved into a cold, chlorinated blue. Alara heard the splash, a deafening roar in her ears, followed by the muffled sound of the party. She surfaced, gasping for air, her hair plastered to her face. The elegant white linen suit she had chosen as armor was ruined, clinging to her, heavy and transparent. Her dignity felt just as sodden. For a moment, there was a shocked silence. Then it broke. A wave of laughter, sharp and cruel, erupted from the crowd. Alara's eyes found Marcus. He was triumphant, drunk, pointing at her like a carnival attraction. "That's what you get for being boring," he bellowed. Chloe was laughing the hardest, clapping her hands like a seal. "That's amazing, baby," she shrieked. She needed to cool off. Alara's gaze swept the crowd. People she had hosted in her home, people she had smiled at, were now raising their phones, their faces lit by the blue glow of their screens, recording her humiliation. She was a spectacle. A black wife, pushed into a pool by her white husband to amuse his white girlfriend. The optics were horrifying. The reality was worse. She was treading water, the cold seeping into her bones, when the laughter began to die. It didn't fade. It was cut short, as if a switch had been thrown. The crowd parted. Samuel King stepped out of the shadows. He walked slowly, his pace measured, parting the sea of tech brothers and influencers without touching a single one. His face was terrifyingly calm, but his hand, Alara noticed, was clenched at his side. The calm was over. He walked directly to the edge of the pool, his eyes fixed only on Alara. He ignored Marcus completely, as if he were a piece of furniture. He ignored the 200 phones still pointed his way. "Baby girl," he said, his voice quiet but carrying in the sudden, heavy silence. He took off his simple, tailored jacket, the one that looked unassuming but cost more than Marcus's watch, and knelt by the pool. Alara swam to the edge, and he draped the jacket over her shivering shoulders as she climbed out, water streaming from her ruined suit onto the expensive tile. Marcus, still oblivious, stumbled over, his laugh returning. "Hey, Pops. Did you see that? Just a little fun. Don't be such a stick in the mud." Samuel rose to his full height. He looked at Marcus for the first time that night. His eyes were not angry. They were cold. They were the eyes of a man closing a deal. He pulled out an old-looking smartphone, a model that looked years out of date but was likely ballistic-proof and encrypted. He pressed a single button. "Michael," Samuel said into the phone. His voice was clear and commanding, silencing the last remaining whispers. "Liquidate all holdings in Sterling Tech. Yes, all of them. Effective immediately. And call the board. He's finished." Marcus's smile froze. His face went slack. What did you just say?" he stammered, the drunken fog clearing. "Who is Michael? You can't do that. You're nobody." "You think you're a billionaire," Samuel said, his voice quiet but carrying across the stunned silence of the poolside. "You're not even a millionaire. You're just my daughter's failed experiment." Marcus stared, his face a mask of pale, panicked confusion. The Stanford Pittis he paid, the board he intimidated, the old man whose advice about older eyes he had mocked, none of it mattered. The man he had dismissed as nobody was holding a phone that controlled his entire world. The whispers in the crowd turned frantic. Guests were no longer recording. They were searching. A well-known tech investor near the front suddenly gasped, his face white. He looked from his phone to Samuel, his eyes wide with terror. "Oh my God," the investor breathed. That's Samuel King. As in King's Capital Holdings." He looked at his friend. "He's worth billions. Not a billionaire. The billionaire." The name dropped like a bomb. King's Capital Holdings. The silent, monolithic firm that owned half of Atlanta's tech sector. Marcus shook his head, a desperate, choking laugh escaping his throat. No, his name is, he's just Samuel." Alara, wrapped in her father's jacket, finally stepped forward. The water dripped from her hair onto the tile, but she felt no cold. "His name is Samuel King, Marcus," she said, her voice clear. "My father." Samuel looked at Marcus, his expression not angry, just finished. "The $50 million Series B funding that saved your company 3 years ago? The one from that anonymous LLC? That was me. The Stanford Pittis you bragged about? I funded their department. The building you lease for Sterling Tech? I own it. In fact," Samuel gestured vaguely at the manicured lawns beyond the walls, "I own this entire street." Marcus's mouth opened and closed. He looked like a fish gasping for air. Chloe, seeing her billionaire protector crumbling, suddenly looked confused and afraid. She made a fatal mistake. She tried to intervene. "Mr. King," she simpered, "I'm sure if Marcus just..." Samuel didn't even look at her. He made a second call. Security. Instantly, two large men in black suits, who Alara had assumed were catering staff, materialized at his side. "Please escort Ms. Chloe." He paused, leaning forward to read her guest name tag. "Ms. Chloe Martin, off my property." "Your property?" Chloe shrieked. "This is Marcus's house." "No," Samuel said simply. "It's my house too." "The bank that holds your mortgage?" "That's me." "Marcus." Chloe screamed as the security guards gently took her arms. "Marcus, tell them." But Marcus wasn't listening. He fell to his knees. The sound was a sickening wet slap on the tile. He crawled, literally crawled, the last few feet to Alara. "Alara, baby." "I didn't know," he sobbed, grabbing at the hem of her ruined suit. "It was a joke. I love you." "I didn't know." Alara looked down at the pathetic, broken man at her feet. The man who had humiliated her, mocked her father, and despised her heritage. "No, Marcus," she said, pulling her suit from his grasp. "You loved feeling superior to me. You loved humiliating my poor, black father. You just learned the truth." She stepped back as Samuel put his arm around her. "Your company will be worth zero by Monday morning," Samuel stated, as if commenting on the weather. "And the divorce papers will be on your desk by 9 a.m. 6 months later, Alara Sterling King walked into the boardroom, not as a victim in a wetsuit, but as the new CEO of the King's Capital Acquisitions Division. The name Sterling was gone from the building, replaced by the quiet, powerful King insignia. Alara, no longer hiding her brilliance or her birthright, had stepped into the role she was born for. Her new life was not about revenge. It was about restoration. That night, she stood on a stage at the Atlanta Charity Gala, an event she and her father were now hosting. She looked out at the crowd, her voice confident and clear, speaking on the gala's theme. "We must invest in people, not in prejudices," she said, her father, Samuel, watching from the front row with a proud smile. "True value is found in character, not in curb appeal." As a side venture, she had opened an upscale soul food restaurant called The King's Pie, built around her grandmother's recipes. The sweet potato pie that Marcus had once relegated to the staff fridge was now the most sought-after dessert in the city, a quiet, delicious celebration of the very heritage he had mocked. Life, Alara had learned, had a way of balancing the books. The next morning, on her way to the office, she made an unplanned stop. She was early, and the smell of coffee from a small mid-range diner reminded her of her college days. She walked in, the bell above the door jingling. The man behind the counter had his back to her, fumbling with an espresso machine. He looked haggard, smaller, his expensive suit replaced by a stained apron. When he turned to take her order, his eyes met hers, and the blood drained from his face. It was Marcus. He was visibly shaking as he poured her black coffee, his hands so unsteady he spilled some on the counter. He had lost everything. The company had folded in 72 hours. The house, the cars, the friends, all gone. The video of the pool incident, released by a guest, had made him unemployable in the tech world. He slid the coffee toward her, avoiding her eyes. "That'll be $3.50. Alara paid. As she turned to leave, his voice, now thin and reedy, stopped her. "Alara, please." She turned, her face not angry, not sad, just final. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his eyes filling with the weak tears of a man who had been caught. "I was a fool. I was cruel. I don't know what I was thinking." Alara paused, looked at the man she had once loved, the man who had built his identity on her supposed inferiority. "Yes, you were, Marcus," she said, her voice calm and even. "You didn't push me in the pool because you thought I was boring. You pushed me in the pool because you thought I was beneath you. Because I was black. You weren't sorry for the push. You were sorry you pushed the wrong woman." He opened his mouth to argue, to plead, but she continued, delivering the final, quiet truth. "My father taught me that money just reveals who you already are. It amplifies what's inside. You weren't a billionaire, Marcus. You weren't even a self-made man. You were just a bully who got lucky." Alara placed a $100 bill in his empty tip jar, an echo of the charity he thought he was giving her father, and walked out into the sunlight, leaving him behind forever. As the dust settles, We see that character is not measured by the size of a bank account, but by the depth of one's respect for others. In a world too quick to judge by the color of skin or the age of a car, this story reminds us that true power often lies in the quiet dignity we overlook. Like a seed buried in winter, kindness and respect wait patiently, ready to reveal their true strength when it matters most. Because when we dismiss someone based on prejudice, we often lose the chance to see who they truly are and who we could have been.